If you're looking to hire a web designer to make you a new website, then this video is for you. I'm going to walk you through the basic process that most designers follow when working with new clients. This process starts with you, the client, making the initial contact and ends with a signed contract to begin the project. The more prepared you are, the easier and faster this process goes. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and get started. Hi, my name is Steve Vick. I'm the owner of Web907. We're a design agency that's focused on helping businesses make the most out of their online presence. So in this video, we're going to try to help you eliminate all the stress and confusion that can go into hiring a web designer for your new website. Many people don't know where to start, what questions to ask, or what they even need to do in order to begin. And so hopefully this video is going to eliminate all those questions and make this process much easier. Before we start, one thing to note. At this point, you should have narrowed down your decision on who you're planning to hire to 1, 2, or maybe 3 different designers. If you haven't done that already, I've made a video on how to select your designers, right? How to pick your final 2 or 3 designers. That video should be linked up here, or maybe it's over there. I can never tell. And go ahead and watch that video, but this video is still going to be relevant, so you should watch this first and then go back and watch that. I'll link to that video down in the footer, in the description below as well. All right, step 1, you got to make contact, right? This is a very easy step. Basically, just reach out to the designer you're looking to work with. Typically, this is done in an email or maybe a phone call. And when you do this, it's best to be ready to include some information. Your business name, the type of business you're in. If you have an existing website, designers typically want to know that and have a look at that. And a brief description of what your needs are. Do you need a redesign? Do you need a brand new website? Do you just need new features? Do you need new hosting? What are you looking to do? Step 2, once the designer has gotten that information, they'll probably reach back out to you to arrange a meeting or some way to do an intake. During this intake, the designer is going to ask questions so they can get to know more about your business. Basically, they're going to want to know, what type of services do you offer? Are you selling products? Do you need e-commerce? Do you need an online appointment setter? How many pages do you think your site's going to need? Do you think you're going to need any special features? Do you need a document uploader, online payment system, maybe a blog and latest news page? Get a quote, gallery. There's all sorts of different things that a website can have. And the designer is going to want to know basically all of the different pages and information and content and plugins and add-ons that your site may need in order to accomplish your goals. The designer may also ask some technical questions. First of all, they're going to want to know if you already have a website and what it's built with. Is it built with WordPress, Weebly, Wix, or another site builder? They're going to know if you need hosting. Do you already have your domain? If so, who owns your domain? Do you have a business email? Meaning, is your business's email address your domain? For instance, if your domain is mybusiness.com, your email would be info@mybusiness.com or contact@mybusiness.com. Those are business emails. And if you have those, it's good to know because that will determine where your mail server is going to be set up. Also during this intake process, the designer may ask you about your content. Do you have content already? Are you going to pull content from an existing site? Are you going to be creating new content? Your content can include not just the verbiage, but the images, any videos, your logo, any downloads, any documents that might get added. All of this is the content that creates the site. The designer may go on to ask you about other services you may need, and this could include asking questions on whether or not you need help getting your website ranked. Do you want to place higher in Google, right? This is SEO. Right? Search engine optimization. And this is typically another type of service separate from the web design process. How do you plan on reaching your audience? Do you need digital marketing? Are you planning on doing radio ads? Do you need landing pages specific to the products that you're selling? This is, again, information that the designer is going to be intaking in order to process the scope of the project. And finally, the designer may ask you about your budget. Do you have a budget set for this? Now, typically for a smaller site that may be $1,000 or $2,000, I probably don't ask if they have a budget set aside for this. I'll just include the price in the quote. But as I'm calculating all this information in my head and the budget starts reaching $3,000 or $4,000, I'm going to ask the client if they have a budget in mind. This is just a way for me to check in to make sure that the cost expectations of the client is realistic. Right? If you're wanting a 20 product e-commerce page with a login area for staff and document downloads, and you start reaching that $3,000 to $4,000 mark, but you're expecting only to pay $1,000, well, then we have to talk about the realistic expectations of what it does cost to build a website. So don't be surprised if a developer or designer asks you what your budget is. Hey, real quick, if you're finding this video informative, I would love it if you just go down there and give it a good like. Go ahead, right down there, just give it a like. Cool, let's keep going. Now, armed with all this information, the designer should have enough information to give you an accurate quote. The quote should include details about what pages and content are going to be included on the website. What are the deliverables, right? And this question should be answered within the quote. If you need any special features or additional add-ons or plugins, those should also be listed in the quote because they usually come with an added cost. If you're asking for additional services like SEO, or maybe the developer has to buy the domain or supply you hosting or do marketing or create a business listing for you, these additional services should also be added into the quote. Quotes should also include a timeline for the completion of the project. Of course, the price should be in the quote, and a payment schedule, typically laid out on when the payments happen based on benchmarks throughout the project. The purpose of this quote is not just to give you an accurate price of what the project is going to cost, but it's to ensure that you and your designer are on the same page of what's going to be included in the project. If anything is missed or added inadvertently, then you should let the designer know about that. And then the quote should be updated according to what has been added or taken out of the expectations of the deliverables. Now, armed with all the different information and the quotes that you've gotten from all the different designers you've reached out to, it's time to pick your designer. Now, picking a designer isn't just about the price. Of course, that is definitely a big underlying basis of your decision making, but also think back on the process you've gone through. Who asked good questions about your business? Who do you feel really listened to what you were describing and what needs you have for your business and your website? Who offered you the best solutions and came up with maybe ideas you weren't even thinking of that helped solve some of the problems you may currently be having? And also, who makes the best designs that match what your needs are for what you're trying to accomplish? Go through these questions in your head, make your decision, and then contact the designer to let them know that indeed they have been selected as the person you want to design your website. Once you notify the designer that's been selected for your project, you should expect to hear back from them with information on what the next steps are. And typically the next step is a contract. Now, don't be intimidated by contracts. Most of them are just boilerplate. They have a lot of the same information in them, so don't get overwhelmed with the idea of signing a contract. It's for your protection as well as the designer's protection. Some of the information within a contract is going to be things like the statement of work, right? This defines what the scope of the project is. Typically, I just take the quote because the quote has all the deliverables and add-ons and whatever listed out, and I add that as an attachment to the contract. But some designers may actually put a scope of work area in there and then paste them into the actual contract. You should also have a section in there that gives you information on the review process, right? How are you going to approve work that's submitted to you? How many iterations do you get in that approval process? A termination clause should also be included, and this basically outlines any compensations or refunds that are necessary based on a certain set of circumstances. So how do you break the contract? There should also be a section on intellectual property rights and copyright protection, because you certainly don't want to take a website from a designer, post it on the internet, and find out that they have copyright protected images on there, right? That would be bad for everybody. And of course, the cost and a payment schedule should also be within this contract. So give the contract a good review. Make sure that you're comfortable with the pricing, the payment schedule, the deliverables. Make sure there's nothing in there that you weren't expecting. And once you're ready, go ahead and sign it and submit it back to the designer. I typically have a digital signing way of doing this. So typically my clients will sign online. I'll do the same. And then the project is ready to begin. Now, finally, most designers are going to have some type of payment, some type of upfront payment before they get started. For me, my process concludes with the initial payment. Once I have that payment and the contract is signed, I know we're starting. I know the project is a go. For most designers, there's quite a bit of upfront time and expense that goes into developing a website. They have to install the software on the server. They maybe have to secure a domain. They might have to buy licensing for some add-on plugins. They're going to be configuring all the themes and plugins that go in there. There's just a lot of upfront time. So typically there's going to be an initial payment to get the project started. This is before the work has even begun. So don't be surprised if you're asked for that. So that's the process in a nutshell. at least my process, and my process isn't too different than other designers' processes. You may find that some of them skip certain areas. There's a lot of times I'll do an intake on the initial contact and I'll jump right to the contract. Someone will call me up. We'll have a 15-minute phone call about a 5-page website. I'll give them a quote right on the phone. They'll say, that sounds good. And I'll just send them a contract with the deliverables right into it. So it's not always step 1, step 2, step 3, right? A lot of times you can jump steps or skip steps based on your circumstances. Other times it might take longer because your project is bigger. But for the most part, the process is this. 1, you do your initial contact. 2, you do an intake of some type or a meeting, an in-person meeting, so the designer can get an idea of the scope of the project. 3, you get a quote from the designer that lays out the cost for all the different services, add-ons, and deliverables. 4, you should have a contract that's for your safety and the designer's safety as well. And then 5, payment seals the deal and the project begins. All right, that's a wrap for this video. I hope that this was informative for you and that you got something out of it. And if you did, be sure to give it a like down below. And if you want more content like this, do subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, folks, and I will see you next time.